Hi guys, and welcome to another video. In this video what I'm aiming to show is the build I'm using, and we're going to be doing a T5 expedition just to show it off a little bit. So I'm using a sort of hunter setup using the bow and longbow primarily. I'm running with 2 cloth pieces and 1 leather piece, so I will show them just in a second. So I'm running with the mage's cowl, the mage's robe, the mercenary shoes, the longbow for group activities and the normal bow for single activities. The reason for this is the longbow has much superior AoE, and the bow has much stronger single target, and while I'm on my own I don't tend to pull anything more than 1 or 2 mobs. So the skills I'm using on these, on the cowl I'm using poison. It's a nice just damage increase. My main goal in our typical guild party is just to do as much damage as possible, and the other 2 don't really benefit me much. On the robe I'm using the heal more than anything else at the moment, just for sustain after pulls, but if I wasn't using that I would probably be using Frost Shield when we get to sort of harder content. The reason for this is because I'm doing quite a lot of damage now. I do tend to pull aggro quite a bit, and Frost Shield gives me a way to survive that. Good opportunity to show what my boots do. So on my boots I've chosen Stealth. The reason for this is it's an aggro reset. So I use it in everything. I use it outside world when I'm soloing, I use it in dungeons. The reason for this is because when things get a little bit too much and you start pulling aggro, you can stealth, and it's so easy just to break it. If you sit in stealth for the whole duration, you can then run straight after, and you pretty much out sort of pace anything as long as you're not encumbered. That's really important. If you get encumbered, then you're going to leave yourself in a pretty bad situation. So on my bow, I'm using the longbow at the moment with these skills. So I'm using multi-shot. I will swap to deadly shot in a little bit when we start getting to a couple of the bosses, because there's just no real need to be multi-shot for bosses. I'm using explosive arrows just because frost shot's not very good for PvE, especially in groups when I'm not really having to kite anything. And obviously rain of arrows as your E ability. This is quite a strong sort of AoE damage. It pulses for sort of 100 each tick, more so when you get buffed by party members, but as you can see I've just immediately pulled aggro on these mobs. Just something I will say, if you're playing something like the Hunt, or especially something at range, anyone who's played a game like League of Legends knows the old attack move command. It's moving and then attacking. So what I'm doing here is as I move I'm clicking away and I'm pressing spacebar. Spacebar is the default sort of button for attack. Yeah, this is a really messy pull. So you find that we're picking up quite a bit of aggro here. I'm going to try and kill off this axe thrower really quickly. Looks like they've threat reset, which isn't actually ideal, but okay, it's done now. So obviously I'm currently in tier 4.2 pieces with a T5 bow. And this is because bow is the only thing I can actually equip at tier 5, because I've swapped a bit of my armour around as I've progressed. I think it's a really good setup for DPS in terms of a PvE. I will definitely be swapping to sorry, not that one. I will definitely be swapping to Frost Shield when it starts getting to like harder content, or especially PvP content. Although I will be keeping my stealth above all else. I think it is so helpful. So what I'm actually going to do here is actually swap to my other bow. So it does put everything on cooldown for a second, so it's a shame I didn't do it before. What this allows me to do is in a second I'm going to be able to pump some serious amount of damage out into this mob. We've actually pulled the pack behind us, which isn't ideal. So as the bow, all you can see is I've used my E, so we'll go over my bow's items quickly. I've got Deadly Shot, which is just a quick cast sort of damage. Yeah, they're kiting it way too far away from us. Which is just a quick shot. I'm also using explosive arrows rather than frost shot. It just benefits me more so, especially using Enchanted Quiver. Now the best way to use these abilities is if you use the Enchanted Quiver until you manage to hit them with 6 stacks, so this is indicated by a purple shield above them breaking. So there you go. What you can do then is if you pop W and you use the explosive arrows, it'll hit everything with an extra bit of damage on top that obviously will benefit from having the resistance drop. So it's definitely a sort of good synergy in terms of what you can do with it. So I definitely think for T5 at the moment I need to be single target. I just don't think I can afford to not be. We are killing things really quickly, so that died almost immediately. When you're using a bow, from my experience so far, it's better to use your E and W combination until it runs out, and then you get to learn. Then you get to use Q afterwards. There is a way to weave Qs in between your E attacks to spread out as much as possible, so I'll try and do that in a minute just to show you. Okay, I'll do one of these. So I've actually got aggro on this now. So what you can do is you can Q, and then you attack, and then you Q, and then you attack. And what you do then, you keep this resistance debuff up while being able to put Qs, and you manage to keep the resistance debuff up then for such a long time. You do a really significant amount of damage with it. This is a lot better in group play than doing anything else, because you keep that resistance buff up for everyone, so anyone that hits that mob at that point will benefit from doing this, from you doing this. It isn't hard to do, but I suppose it takes a little bit of skill just to manage. But as you can see, I still had 5 shots left in my quiver, which means on a boss I'll certainly be doing this. It will just massively increase the damage our whole group is doing. As well as myself, I do believe it is the most efficient way to DPS. In terms of the expeditions that we're doing here, I think these are one of the most efficient ways I've found to get fame so far. I wouldn't go as far to say it is the most efficient. Like we were doing group farming in a blue dungeon earlier, and I would say potentially that's better, but it was an empty dungeon, so it could have just been that we just had a lucky run and we had a good group going with us. But in terms of something that is spammable, you can just keep queuing for these. I definitely think it's worth it. I actually got as much fame nearly from the tier 4 ones as I did for the tier 5 ones, and it was about 10 to 12 minutes quicker to clear. Which is potentially worth it if you manage to get a group setup going and you're doing your own groups. Definitely in the evenings when everything's a little bit too populated, this is something worth doing. Just getting blue dungeons that are empty is just almost impossible at that point. I think I might actually die here. I have got threat on things. There we go. Unfortunately, I'm holding threat. I believe that's the tank actually looking to leave here, which isn't ideal. Which is a shame, because we've actually done a good chunk of the dungeon already. But yeah, I don't really think there's much else to say about this build so far. There is maybe a couple of different ways you could go about doing it. I've certainly looked into crossbows, but it's nothing I've actually experienced with yet. So there's different ways to look at this, but this is what I like about the game, and I hope to put out more videos soon with different builds, from tanking builds to healing builds, again to a couple of different DPS builds that I'm looking to play around with myself and just see how they go. So if you enjoyed this, please leave a like, a comment, subscribe if you enjoyed it. Other than that, check out my Twitch. I stream almost every evening. Anyway guys, have fun, catch you later.